The man who taught a generation how to survive in the wild was, on multiple occasions, sleeping in a hotel, not a tent, not a survival shelter built from bark and desperation.
Try getting in between these mountains, and there's a lot of turbulence. Whoa!
A hotel with a hot tub with Wi-Fi. While Discovery Channel was busy telling you that Bear Grylls was out there, alone, fighting nature with nothing but his bare hands and an iron will. He was presumably checking his emails and ordering room service. Man vs. Wild ran for 7 seasons and was watched in over 150 countries. Bear Grylls drank his own urine on camera. He ate raw yak eyeballs. He crawled through animal carcasses for warmth. He did all of this with the serene confidence of a man who absolutely knew there was a bed waiting for him 40 minutes down the road. And here's the thing, the show was genuinely brilliant. Bear Grylls was a former SAS soldier who had broken 3 vertebrae in a parachute accident and then climbed Everest 18 months later. If anyone had the right to stand in a jungle and tell you what to do, it was him.
It's gonna be easy! The clouds are moving in! And there's only a tiny weather window!
The problem was that standing in a jungle and telling you what to do was apparently the only part of the job description he actually followed. This is the story of how the most watched survival show on television survived everything except the truth. To understand why Man vs. Wild fell apart so spectacularly, you first have to understand why it worked so spectacularly. And the answer is Bear Grylls himself, because Bear Grylls has a backstory so absurd it sounds like it was written by a network executive who had never met a real human being.
This whole landscape's just wild!
His real name is Edward Michael Grylls. His sister gave him the nickname Bear.
The legend of Count Dracula was born here.
And if that's not enough,
when he was 1 week old, which is either adorable or a sign that his family already knew something the rest of us didn't. He joined the British SAS reserves at 19. In 1996, at 21 years old, his parachute partially tore at 15,000 feet over Zambia. He landed on his back, on his parachute pack, and shattered 3 vertebrae. Doctors told him he might never walk properly again. 18 months later, he stood on the summit of Mount Everest. He was 23 years old, making him one of the youngest people in history to reach the top. Not as a stunt, not for television, just because apparently that's what Bear Grylls does when he's supposed to be recovering.
To be quick, the weather changes fast here, and the pilot can't risk snagging the rope in the trees.
Discovery Channel saw this man, heard this story, and did what any reasonable broadcaster would do. They handed him a camera, dropped him in the Rocky Mountains, and told him to figure it out. The pilot episode aired on March 10th, 2006. The premise was stripped down to its bones. 1 man, no food, no shelter, no crew, no help.
And yeah, got very fast for digestion, so it's gone basically pretty well straight through them.
Just Bear Grylls and whatever the wilderness decided to throw at him that week. It was the right show at exactly the right moment. Reality television was everywhere, but most of it was people arguing in houses or crying on dating shows. Man vs. Wild offered something the genre had never quite managed: consequence. The only question was how long that feeling could last before someone looked behind the curtain. The first crack appeared in 2007, and Discovery Channel responded to it the way all television networks respond to inconvenient truths.
Need to do, give it a bit of a rinse with some water.
By pretending it wasn't there and hoping everyone would move on. For about a year, it worked. People wanted to believe in Bear Grylls. They needed to believe in Bear Grylls. The alternative, that the most authentic survival show on television was being filmed 20 minutes from a hotel with a hot tub, was simply too depressing to consider on a Tuesday night. Then Mark Weinert started talking, and Tuesday nights were never the same again.
I'm gonna try and land in water.
I can see some high alpine lakes down there!
Weinert was an American survival consultant who had worked on the production. In 2008, he went to the British press with the kind of detailed, specific, meticulously sourced account that you only give when you have been sitting on information for a very long time and have finally decided that the money is no longer worth the silence. What he described was not a minor production shortcut. It was a complete philosophical redefinition of the word alone. The Sierra Nevada episode, for example. Bear Grylls dropped into one of the most brutal mountain environments in North America, surviving on nothing but instinct and willpower. Compelling television. The only problem, per Weinert, was that after cameras stopped rolling each evening, Grylls and the crew drove to a comfortable lodge to sleep. A lodge with a hot tub. A lodge with internet access. The man the world believed was huddled against the Sierra Nevada cold, gnawing on pine bark and questioning his life choices.
Oh, fresh! Like this, just take his head off.
Was in fact extremely warm and presumably watching other people's survival shows on cable. Then there was the desert island episode, which somehow managed to be worse. Grylls was stranded, alone, building a bamboo raft from scratch using only the materials nature had provided, because that is what you do when you are a true survivor with no other options. Weinert's version of events featured a few additional details. The island was in Hawaii. After filming, Grylls left the island and slept in a motel on the mainland. And the bamboo raft, the one Bear Grylls built with his bare hands, on camera, as proof of human ingenuity triumphing over nature's indifference, was built by Weinert. Before filming, off camera, Grylls showed up, added what were diplomatically described as finishing touches, and presented the finished product to millions of people across 150 countries as a solo achievement. If you removed every ounce of irony from the phrase reality television, this is exactly what would be left.
I can see the lake here, and that's what I'm aiming for. It's gonna be.
And Discovery Channel's response to all of this, to 2 seasons of hotel nights, pre-built rafts, and motel checkouts disguised as wilderness survival, was to add a 2-second disclaimer to the beginning of each episode. 2 seconds. For a show that had spent years presenting a fully crewed, hotel-assisted, pre-constructed raft production as one man against the raw wilderness. That disclaimer did approximately as much work as a slippery when wet sign at the bottom of Niagara Falls.
Time I spot the rapids, I've no chance of escaping the currents. They're sucking me now downstream.
Grylls himself opted for the classic non-apology apology. He told the BBC he was genuinely sorry if viewers felt misled, which is the linguistic equivalent of apologizing for someone else's feelings rather than your own actions. Discovery acknowledged that isolated elements had not been natural to the environment, a sentence so carefully constructed it could mean absolutely anything, and was clearly designed to mean as little as possible.
Is ahead here, and I just hope this thing stays together.
Together, they had managed to admit wrongdoing without actually admitting anything. It was, in its own way, the most impressive survival act either of them had ever pulled off. Meanwhile, the universe had arranged a perfectly positioned comparison that nobody at Discovery Channel could have been happy about. Les Stroud had been running Survivor Man since 2004. Stroud went into the wilderness alone, carried his own camera equipment, filmed himself, and stayed out there, genuinely, miserably, verifiably alone, for 7 to 10 days at a time. No crew, no base camp, no lodge with a hot tub, just Les Stroud, and whatever particular hell he had chosen that season, looking directly into a camera he was also operating. Stroud did not hide what he thought of Man vs. Wild. He referred to Grylls as an actor and television presenter rather than a survival instructor, which in the context of what Weinert had just revealed, landed less like an opinion and more like a coroner's report. In a Reddit AMA with the energy of someone who had been saving this specific observation for years, he pointed out that it is not physically possible to extract drinkable water from elephant dung, unless, he noted, your cameraman has pre-soaked it with bottled water first. This was a reference to an actual technique Bear Grylls demonstrated on the show. To be absolutely clear, Grylls drank liquid wrung from elephant feces on international television.
Someone once said to me, it's like trying to woo the girl of your dreams.
That was the part millions of people believed was real. The hotel was the part that surprised them. The survival expert community also raised the small issue that several man versus wild techniques were not just theatrical, but actively dangerous for anyone inspired enough to try them at home.
These rapids appear endless.
Grylls had a habit of rushing through hazardous terrain and getting unnecessarily soaked, both textbook methods for developing hypothermia, which kills people. Teaching it to a global audience as a survival strategy is, at minimum, a creative interpretation of the phrase educational programming. By 2012, the relationship between Bear Grylls and Discovery Channel had reached its natural conclusion. Discovery announced they were ending all productions with Grylls due to an ongoing contractual dispute, which is the television industry's preferred phrasing for something considerably less diplomatic. Grylls had refused to participate in 2 projects he had been contracted to deliver. Discovery canceled everything in response. 7 seasons, 150 countries, tens of millions of viewers, ended not with a dramatic finale set against a stunning wilderness backdrop, but with a press release drafted in a conference room by someone who had definitely never drunk anything squeezed from elephant dung. Grylls' team responded that he had taken great risks to deliver award-winning programming for 7 years. Discovery issued no further comment. The hot tub was unavailable for statement. Man vs. Wild never came back. The show that had convinced an entire generation that one man could conquer the wilderness alone was ultimately killed not by nature, not by a predator, not by exposure or dehydration or any of the 1,000 brutal ways the wild can end a person.
Smeared it in a dog poop.
But by a contract dispute in a boardroom. Bear Grylls survived the Sierra Nevada, the Sahara, the Amazon, and the Arctic. He did not survive his own deal memo, which when you think about it is the only honest thing the show ever produced. Here is the design flaw that nobody at Discovery Channel apparently noticed when they greenlit Man vs. Wild in 2006, possibly because they were too busy counting the money. The show had no product. Not really. What it had was a promise, one man alone, genuinely at risk. And the moment that promise cracked, what remained was a man in expensive outdoor clothing eating unusual things in front of a camera crew who had just checked out of a lodge with a hot tub. You cannot sell half a survival show. Every other reality format has a buffer between the audience and total disillusionment. A singing competition survives a rigged vote because the singing is still real. Man vs. Wild had no buffer.
Come in. There's one right under this.
Which means the entire enterprise was always one whistleblowing survival consultant away from becoming unwatchable. And everyone involved either didn't notice or genuinely believed that what happens at base camp stays at base camp. After the cancellation, Grylls launched Running Wild, a celebrity version of the format where A-listers like Barack Obama and Kate Winslet got dropped into the wilderness alongside him. The moment he stopped pretending to be alone, the format became honest for the first time in its existence and immediately less interesting to everyone involved. Watching Obama prod elephant dung in an Indian national park,
And then really, the rest of that is good to eat.
generated headlines the way a circus generates headlines. Briefly, loudly, and with no lasting nutritional value. The cleanest summary of everything wrong with Man vs. Wild is this. In 2009, Bear Grylls was appointed Chief Scout of the United Kingdom, an organization built specifically to teach young people real, practical, life-saving outdoor skills. The man whose techniques experts had publicly described as dangerous to replicate became the symbolic face of youth outdoor education across an entire country. That is not an unfortunate coincidence. That is a society so thoroughly sold on the performance of competence that it stops checking whether the competence was actually there, which is the entire story of Man vs. Wild in a single job appointment. Here is the genuinely tragic part. Bear Grylls did not need to fake any of it. The broken vertebrae were real. The Everest climb at 23 was real. The SAS service was real. The man had accumulated enough legitimate near-death experiences to fill 7 seasons of television without inventing a single one, and then chose to film in Hawaii, sleep in a motel, and have someone else build the raft anyway. That is not the decision of a fraud. That is the decision of someone who looked at a genuinely extraordinary life and thought, yes, but what if we also added a hot tub?
A lot of turbulence. Whoa!
The real casualty was not the show. It was the promise, and once that was gone, there was nothing left to sell. Bear Grylls is still out there, still filming, still consuming things the human body was never designed to process. The show is gone, the man is not, which is either a testament to genuine resilience or proof that a good publicist can survive anything. Like and subscribe, and let us know which reality show deserves to be put out of its misery next.